to Too Many Chair Shots, a contemporary wrestling podcast about 20 years too late. I am Razorbug, and tagging with me this evening is Mike.
Hello.
Hello. For those of you who don't know, we are critiquing, having a look at, having a review of, mostly being a bit dumbfounded by 1996's WWE product. This is the third show, so we're back to reviewing the month of Raws leading up to WWF In Your House, Buried Alive. We're going to take things through. We're basically now at the beginning of the Monday Night Wars. Is that fair to say, Mike?
Yep, absolutely.
So things are starting to get a little bit dirty between the two competing companies, and
people are getting touchy. Sure,
they definitely are, and they're taking some cheap shots. We're starting off with a real cheap shot from the actually the fourth Raw of this month, but. We have a bit of controversy on a subject that's not in the slightest bit controversial to me, but there you go.
No, absolutely. Described as a musical scandal that rocked the WWF.
Rocked? Is that deliberately?
I don't know, because it's about country music.
It is, yeah.
This was done all in promos as well across the. This was just for TV as well. The paying audience at the arena saw none of this. So
this is the I don't know, embarrassing or insulting the career of a ex-WWE wrestler who's gone to WCW, Jeff Jarrett, and his gimmick was that he was a country singer, and that his roadie had basically screwed him over in his last match and lost him the title. What on earth were they doing here, Mike?
It's so strange. They tried to build some suspense with it by saying, they frame it as being like an explosive bombshell, this musical scandal that has rocked the WWF. And basically, in July '95, on an In Your House pay-per-view, Jeff Jarrett sang a song that I think was supposedly from his album called With My Baby Tonight. He performed it live. Well, they said that he performed it live at the pay-per-view, but they then show footage of him clearly having lip-synced it. So obviously his
badly lip-synced it.
His mouth movements do not sync up with normal human speech patterns. I wasn't shocked that he'd lip-synced it. It seems perfectly normal to me. I wouldn't expect a wrestler to be a singer.
I was going to say, even professional singers are will lip sync on big live events. So
yeah, Top of the Pops for years. Everybody mind.
Yeah,
and that's like that's a music show. It's not like that's a side bit on a wrestling pay-per-view. That's a show that's only about music and the performance of music. And
I mean, I suppose it was his gimmick that he was this. It's going back to what you've said before about the careers angle. But his gimmick was that he was first and foremost a country singer, and he did the whole thing like it was a tour or concert tour.
He's touring around doing these gigs, performing live, and then to sort of alleviate the pressure of fame and the baying audience, he comes and beats someone up every week.
Yeah, and he even brings his rodeo along as a tag team partner.
Who is also adept at fighting.
Now, obviously, Jeff Jarrett has gone to WCW. He uses the sometimes nickname JJ. And this is where we actually get to see a mainstay of the Attitude Era, because we are going to get Jesse James, the Road Dogg, yeah. So the whole scandal is that it was actually Jesse James who was singing the song, and his then partner was lip syncing to it. I'm impressed that Jesse James can apparently sing.
Yeah. So there was in one of the bits of VT, there was him, and I've immediately forgotten his name. Jim Jameson?
Yeah, I think so.
Whoever the musical director for the WWF has been all this time. Mm-hmm. So he's playing an acoustic and Jesse James is singing along. And yeah, he is very good, and he has got a nice tuneful voice, and he sings the song very well. But it's a really odd way to set up the introduction, especially because, as I say, they're not doing it for the live audience; it's for the TV audience. So
the thing for me is that makes it really just there to stick it to the WCW, because like if the live audience aren't seeing it, it's not really to build Jesse James's character.
Well, it should be, because it's introducing him as the roadie. They're bringing him back, and they're saying, actually, this guy had far more cred than that guy that's left. But he's got far more cred at singing this one song, not at being a tough guy.
I did like the fact that they explained what the whole trip of the leg thing was, if nothing else than because I'd only heard them talking about it on the Raws the month before, and they actually described it as the roadie. So I actually genuinely thought a roadie had legged him up. I didn't really...
Well, no reason to think that wouldn't have happened.
I was going to say, I suppose that's kayfabe, so there you go.
They say at one point that there's been a 15-month investigation into this incident.
Into this 3.5-minute song.
Yeah, the Iraq War inquiry only lasted 7 years. So this is like 1/6 of an investigation into a war over who lip-synced a bit of music. As if they don't know.
I was going to say, how did they need to investigate it? Like, how is it that the sound engineer didn't just go, "Oh yeah, no, it was Jesse with a mic in the back"?
I was just playing a CD.
Yeah,
it's fine. I mean, when you start a war, there's loads of people to ask what's going on, who knew what when. But this was something completely within their control. This was a thing on their show. Why did it take 15 months to investigate? Is it conveniently because you now want to push Jesse James? And this is the most sort of ridiculous bullshit thing you can come up with.
And the strange thing is, this was not the most ridiculous bullshit story feud thing that they had this month.
No.
This was actually fairly well done.
Don't get me wrong, it is completely cohesive and it totally worked. He's not on the pay-per-view at the end of this month. I have no idea if he's at the Survivor Series the month after. So I just wonder how they're going to bring him in on the back of him not being at the live shows, and this footage presumably not being played at the live shows. So even when he debuts, he's still got to build some rapport with the audience. And I have no idea how they're going to do that. Badly would be my guess.
Badly, yeah. Squash match, maybe? Yeah. Hit someone in the head with a guitar?
Yeah. I don't recall him being a brilliant wrestler either. Out of him and Billy Gunn, it is Billy Gunn who's doing all the moves.
Yeah, he was very much just he had the sort of like shuffly, jivey jabs, and that was about it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, I look forward to seeing that again at some point.
Yep, indeed. So, speaking of the pay-per-view, some of the big highlights of the next pay-per-view, which is Buried Alive, are going to be Stone Cold Steve Austin taking on Bret Hart and Hunter Hearst Helmsley taking on Mr. Perfect. I can only assume that's the case because this is the entire story feud that's been going on ahead of the pay-per-view.
At the pay-per-view, Stone Cold is scheduled to fight Triple H. I think Stone Cold is going to fight Bret at Survivor Series in sort of end of November.
Okay.
Because that's the story that's been going on almost since we started. It's that Austin has been calling out Bret and saying, I need to know if I can beat you because I think you're the best. Meanwhile, again, another longer story has been Triple H's ladies of how do you phrase it politely of negotiable affection being whisked away by Mr. Perfect,
who apparently has powers of mind control.
Yeah, he has some perfect words that can entice ladies away from ringside.
I have it in my notes. I've written it down as psychic sleaze.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's even sleazier mind control than sort of you imagine Paul McKenna getting up to.
Ooh.
I
try and not imagine that.
I have no evidence to suggest that Paul McKenna is anything other than a genuine, decent human being.
Unlike a lot of the people portrayed in this television broadcast.
So the build for Austin versus Helmsley, I thought it was going to be really good because it starts with a match where Triple H is fighting against the Stalker and Austin's on commentary. So what I'm expecting is for there to be some sort of shenanigans between Austin and Triple H, and that's going to set us up for this match.
Yeah, when I saw this is on the first week, I thought, oh, here we go. This is a proper how a feud starts, and this is how it'll build.
But it doesn't.
So, no.
All Austin talks about when he's on commentary is wanting to shit on Bret Hart.
He literally says he shits on the life of Bret. It's
kinky.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say there's some strange fetishism going on there.
Meanwhile, Triple H is fighting the Stalker, and the Stalker's got just camo paint on his face, but it's not done very well, and it looks like he's wrestling in blackface.
It really does.
And it's really sort of troubling. I kept expecting him to break into inappropriate sort of
song and dance routine.
Minstrel show routines. Austin refers to Triple H as Hurst at some point as well. He's like, "Oh, this Hurst guy, he's great." Like, Hurst?
There's three names there. Either the beginning or the end name would have worked, but
yeah, Hurst.
Did you notice on the first time when Stone Cold comes out to do commentary, his head is all kinds of scarred up. It's a mess.
Yes.
I mean, I presume he's been at a... Sorry, go on.
I don't think he's got used to shaving his head properly yet. He's not gone proper bald.
I wondered if he was if he'd been blading really badly at the earlier pay-per-views or something.
Well, I don't think so, because he certainly wouldn't... I don't think... When he has his match at WrestleMania next year, there's a blading incident then, which was really kind of controversial at the time. So I doubt he's been blading since he came to the WWF.
We haven't seen anyone get colour yet, have we?
No, not at all. And I think it's kind of verboten at this point.
Yeah.
Vince is trying to push a family-friendly show, and that kind of spillage is going to be much more in the Attitude Era. But so in between WCW and WWF, Austin did a stint at ECW, but I don't think he even wrestled a match. He was just doing promos on how much of a dick Eric Bischoff was, and really developing that sort of attitude that Austin has, and working with Heyman to get these promos, refine his style on the mic and all of this. I think Heyman, at one point, he was probably on Austin's podcast, or he was on some other podcast, but he said he used to deliberately make Austin wait 4 or 5 hours. So they'd arranged to do it at like 10 in the evening after a show, and Heyman wouldn't get to him till 3 in the morning, so that Austin would be really pissed and angry, and that would then work into the promos and everything. And he would just impro it, and Heyman would feed him bits. And
right.
So
this is not long after the match with Jake the Snake, where he accidentally created the 316 gimmick, is it?
Yes. So because Jake has come back on the back of sobering up and finding Christ. I don't know where. It always implies to me when someone finds Christ that Christ was lost.
Yes, I think
I never see it the other way round, that Christ was always there and somebody found him. Is that he's
presumably Christ was in the last place you looked.
Well, you wouldn't keep looking after,
or the last place you had him last, I would think.
Yeah, but because Austin and Roberts then have a match in this block of Raws, and it was just an excuse for Lawler to carry on trashing him and saying he's an alcoholic, it's dirty. They have a pretty good match because they're both quite intense characters, and it's slow, and there's lots of big spells of huge punches. But it just ends in nothing again, with Lawler distracting Roberts, and then Savio Vega comes in to break up some after-match shenanigans for no reason.
Savio Vega is like the troubleshooter in the WWE at this point, because he runs in about of the 3 sort of Raws that end in a brawl. He runs into almost almost the first person in the ring is Savio Vega. It's like he's feuding with everyone in the locker room.
Well, he's just spoiling for a fight. He wants some airtime.
Is he the company's top babyface or something? Is he supposed to be doing the, taking out any of the heels that get out of line? Or is it just they just literally got nothing for him?
Well, Sean surely is the top babyface, because not only is he champion, but he's got those leather pants and stuff. So that doesn't feed into the build for the Austin Helmsley match at the pay-per-view. And then the last match with either of them, Triple H calls out Mr. Perfect about this constant harassment of his female accomplices. Just for, I can't even remember who Triple H was fighting, but halfway through the match, they do the split screen so that Perfect's promo can play in one half of the screen and you can't really watch the match in the other.
This is the really annoying thing about that, because he's actually facing HBK. It's Stone Cold versus HBK. It's a great match, and they kill half of it by this dual screen feature thing.
Stone Cold is fighting HBK on the Raw the week after.
Oh, sorry, yeah, because they do the same thing there. Though. Yeah. They do the split screen and kill the whole match.
But there's just no point to it. So what is being set up here is for Triple H to fight Mr. on the Monday after In Your House Buried Alive. They're already telling you that Austin is going to fight Michaels for the champion, maybe not for the championship, but they're going to have a match, and Triple H is going to fight Mr. Perfect. So of those three angles, so the pay-per-view match and those two matches on Raw, all of those three matches containing these two wrestlers, the two that are getting billed are the two that are on Raw.
Yeah.
And nobody's building anything for the pay-per-view match. So
you can really tell that the ratings war has started and that the Monday night is now more important than the pay-per-view.
Unless there's going to be a big I assume that the match at the pay-per-view is just going to be to further the Triple H Mr. Perfect angle, because there's nothing to build for HBK versus Austin, because Austin, there's no build for that. Austin's really after Bret Hart.
Mm-hmm.
HBK is not even. So at this pay-per-view, I'm sure we're going to cover this next time, but at this pay-per-view, on the night in the arena, HBK did defend the title, but it's not on the pay-per-view. It was a dark match.
Yeah.
What's the sense in that?
I know. And the stupid thing is, the one that will be on the pay-per-view is the Intercontinental match, Mark Merrow versus Goldust. So, like, if he'd have won both his matches, he'd have been the Intercontinental and World Champion. That would have...
Yeah. I mean, and this match is built from at the start of this month. They have the final match in their Intercontinental tournament, which is Farouk versus Mark Merrow, which was a good match, actually. I thought it was a good mix of power moves and aerial moves. I thought they both got over. Obviously, Merrow wins and gets the championship. There was a confusing bit of business going on. So 2/3 of the way through the match, Sunny, who's Farouk's manager, is ejected from ringside. She's sent back to the back, only to come back sort of 3 minutes later with her handbag, and the referee say nothing.
Yeah.
Is it like 3 minutes in the sin bin, or I just assume that she was meant to have the handbag from the start, and she forgot to bring it out.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. I hadn't thought of that.
So I assume she got kicked out so she could go and get it from the dressing room, because obviously then it's the classic brick in a handbag.
that old classic.
That old chestnut, and it all goes wrong, and Merrow nails Farouk with it, and then wins, it's an odd finish because it's kind of a heelish thing to do, even if they brought the brick bag into the thing. So he goes nuts after winning. JR interviews him. Merrow thanks everyone and Jesus again.
Yep.
And then there's a couple of promos in that episode of Raw to really push him as champ. So there's him going backstage and being surrounded by about 15 jobbers and Savio Vega.
Of course.
And they're all going, yeah, man, you're the champion now. You've won the belt. And it's just like, I know. I saw the match you saw. I know he's champion. But they're obviously trying to really push him as being this new champion, and
There's an amazing bit from JR when he's talking about the marrow salt, which does look amazing, by the way. JR says you've got to be as quick as hip hop to.
No, I've got this written down. It's not quick as hip hop.
It's as quick as a hiccup. Sorry, yeah, you're right. Yeah. I remember I actually went back and re-listened to that because I couldn't tell what he'd said. I did like that line, quick as a hiccup.
I want you to know that in my notes I have spelt hiccup Hiccup, not the abomination that is Hiccoughh.
I did not know there was any other way of spelling it, so I have also got UP.
Yeah, I believe the hiccup spelling is the US American.
Oh, I see. Right, there you go.
But it just looks wrong.
So I'm going to come to touch back on the build-up we were just talking about. I'm going to have a little bit of a running feature here, which is Keep It Classy WWE. So in the previous storyline build, Triple H's solution for Mr. Perfect's psychic sleaze is he handcuffs a woman to the ring.
That was good. I liked it.
That's not long after Jerry the King Lawler says that you'd find more cotton in the top of an aspirin bottle than on Triple H's lady. Yeah, nice. And then in the middle of this, well, not in the middle of the match, but in the middle of this build with Mark Merrow and Goldust. Oh no, actually, I think it's later on. It's in the Owen Hart British Bulldog build. They have Sunny basically hocking the Livewire show, which is their new show, by saying that she's talking on the phone to the commentary desk, which is an awful feature, by the way,
and kept coming back all month.
Yeah, and she's going on about how much she loves men's attention, and I'm like, oh, this is really sounding like just. Oh,
it's almost like it's the mid-90s or something.
Yeah, it is. Wait, no, it feels like it's the mid-80s. That's the problem. They also announced, going back to Merrow, they also announced that he's taking on Farouk at Buried Alive, which he isn't. He's taking Goldust at Buried Alive. Yeah, and then they talk about the fact that because of Vader being a number one contender and Goldust being in the mix because he's feuding with Vader or something, HBK might end up facing either Vader or Goldust at Buried Alive, which again, no, that's not happening.
They changed that the next week and they have it as Vader versus Sid for the number one contendership to try and work it out, presumably because when the HBK does defend the title in a dark match on the pay-per-view, it's against Goldust. Goldust does 2 matches that night. So anyone at that pay-per-view who has watched this build-up, when presented with that match, I just don't know how you would feel. Like when Goldust comes out, you're like, this guy's already had a match tonight, and I definitely don't think he's going to win because I've already been told that he's going to defend the HBK is going to defend the championship tomorrow night on Raw against Austin.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Merrow's first defense is against Diesel Kane, the fake Diesel, who comes out to the ring with JR. And Kevin Kelly says, I don't understand this at all. Me and you both, Kevin. And it's just a backdrop for this Diesel and Razor story, which is...
The problem is, it's not even the Diesel and Razor story. It hasn't been the Diesel and Razor story, and it hasn't been the Stone Cold Bret Hart story. It's been the Jerry Lawler and the Jim Ross story. The main story build for the fake Diesel and Razor it seems to be JR supposedly shooting on how much he doesn't like the company, and then a really confusing switch up where they suddenly announce he's a vice president of something. It's like,
so his promo was great, though.
It was very good, yeah. It was absolutely excellent.
It's easily the best promo we've seen since we started.
And quite candid as well. I mean, this is the first time he talks about his Bell's palsy and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And having been dismissed. It got over a whole host of things. So Vince is being not a straight player and having a dual role backstage and front of house. That JR has grievances against the company and against Vince. And and then they cut him off to take a break as well because he's supposed to be bringing out the bad guy Razor Ramon. But he starts with this sort of rant. And then it just got so confusing. I don't know if this is me overthinking it, but I got really confused.
I don't think it helps that the whole thing descended into basically an argument of semantics as to JR had never said Scott Hall.
Yeah.
So,
but even before that point, because that's when he's arguing with Gorilla Monsoon. But even before that point, so JR's really pissed off with the company. They haven't treated him well. He's only come to do his best. He's only loyal to JR. So why has he signed these two big stars?
Also, why is he, if he's been fired by the company twice, they don't, obviously, they don't have a great working relationship with him. Why has he been made a giant, vice president of something?
He's vice president of administration or something.
Yeah, it is a ridiculous title, yeah.
It's like being vice president of cleaning.
They've been the whole time bigging up this whole thing that Gorilla Monsoon's going to have a word with him, and then Vince McMahon's going to have a word with him, and then on the fourth night he basically literally says Vince and Gorilla Monsoon can't do anything to me. I outrank them.
No, he says he can't be fired. He's got an airtight contract.
So what was the point of having the previous 2 weeks of him being right on a knife edge?
But when it's there's at one point during it's Razor versus Savio Vega
again.
Yeah, and so you've got Kevin Kelly and Lawler in the middle, and then on either end you've got Monsoon and JR. And there's just some mad bants going on between JR and Gorilla Monsoon, to the point where the king has to be the quiet voice of reason, saying they should probably have a meeting in their offices rather than airing this all in public. This from a man who, rather than settle his differences with Jake, will just spit alcohol in his face. I really hoped that it was going to lead to a JR versus Gorilla Monsoon match. I mean, if we had Cornette versus Jose Lothario, why can we not have that? And then they start trashing Doink the Clown as well. What's with that?
Yeah,
leave Doink out of this. What's he done? He's got a hard life running that clown business and turning up for all of these wrestling matches.
Well, yeah.
Well, you've got
parties
one job,
don't play
JR.
themselves.
He's got two.
Well, no, technically JR's got two, because he's now, just like Vince, is a commentator and a key player backstage.
I guess so.
Yes, very strange.
So when they're arguing about, I never said Kevin Nash and Scott Hall were coming back, I said Diesel and Razor, and they get into how delectably delicious these hunky athletes are. And I just couldn't help but wonder if this is some sort of attempt at a philosophical sort of exploration on the nature of identity. Are they saying that we all wear masks, and that some of these masks, when they're made by other people and we change ourselves to fit them, or that the masks are interchangeable, or the masks that we wear are sort of simulacra? What would Baudrillard say?
Ironically,
stop interrupting me.
I do apologise.
No, I give up.
Ironically, Kane will come out with a mask.
He will.
Yeah, life
that is made
art.
for him by other people.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, the whole fake Diesel Razor story it felt like they were trying to use a lot of wrestling airtime to put over two commentators.
Yeah, or I couldn't get the gist of whether this was about, I literally couldn't get down to what JR's motivation was. Did he do this to embarrass the company, or did he do it to show that he has power within the company, that he can hire these people in, that he's got control? Because that would seem to play against his thing of McMahon firing him. It's like, you can't fire me now, and I've got control over the talent. Or was it that he's so disgruntled he's going to bring back this obvious nonsense Diesel and Razor and have that be like, ha ha ha, I made you a laughing stock and you can't fire me for it?
That would be the sensible, logical idea behind it, but I think more likely they just went, quick, we need some drama.
No.
The other reason that doesn't work is because at this point there are lots of managers running around treating wrestlers as if they're their clients. So presumably quite a few people can bring in wrestlers and move them out and do.
I guess so, but then you've also got people who, at the end of a 15-month investigation into lip syncing, is okay to become a wrestler. Was he waiting on the results of that investigation before he could carry on with his career? Was there some sort of insinuation that he was in the wrong somehow?
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. What kind of investigation doesn't publish a report at the end? Chilcott, Levinson, they all publish massive reports at the end.
Yep.
There was nowhere to get this report. I looked online. I couldn't even find the name of the investigating judge.
It was all hush hush. They hushed up the whole thing.
Guess so. Except for the bit where they told us all about it.
Except for that bit. Yeah, except for that bit. So going back to, having all the managers bringing talent in and out of the company, Sunny can't decide who the hell she's representing. There's one point when Farouk is in the ring, she says that she taught Farouk everything he knows, which I thought was like, oh, okay, yeah, fine. You taught him to be a male heavyweight wrestler? Okay. But then going to the Smoking Guns Hart brothers, well, they're not brothers, are they? Hart family. Brothers-in-law. The Hart family angle. Sunny, at the previous pay-per-view, threw her toys out the pram and announced that because the Guns lost the title, she was having nothing more to do with them.
Yep, no more motel shenanigans.
And then the very first, Raw back after the pay-per-view, they're going on about how Billy Gunn can't, stop thinking about her and wants her back, and that she's decided if they can win the titles back, she'll come back as their manager. And
the problem with this was that they were telling you what the story was. There was nothing about Billy Gunn being infatuated. There was nothing about his performance in the ring that showed that infatuation. There wasn't a promo to let us know that that's how he felt. You were just being told he's infatuated with her. It's affecting his performance. And then later it comes up, well, if they win, maybe I'll take them back. But I just didn't get the point. Again, I think maybe all of this has just gone over my head. It's too complex for me to try and understand.
I think they're trying to build a love triangle story, but it's just not taking, because like you say, they're just trying to tell you there's a love triangle, so they're showing you.
But who's the third point on the triangle?
I assumed it was the other Gun, that they were gonna split up the tag team over who got Sunny.
All right.
I don't know though. I'm just guessing here because I'm deliberately not reading ahead on that one because I want to see what they do.
I'm not reading ahead on any of it because it would just depress me.
So,
yeah, there was. I think the Hearts only had one match out of all of these.
Yeah,
which was
it was versus a group called Skip and Zip.
I don't think that they against the Body Donners.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was their only match all month. So there was nothing to build it up against the Guns, because that's who they'll be defending against at the pay-per-view. All that match was really for, because obviously they pretty much squished the Body Donners. It's to get over the idea that Clarence Mason is their new manager, like anyone gave a shit. And
apparently he stole them off of Coronet while Coronet was rehabbing in hospital after his match or something.
A Coronet is something else. I think you mean Jim Cornette.
Cornette, sorry, yes, Cornette.
Jim Cornetto.
Jim Cornetto, yes. With his tennis racket.
That match with the Body Donners and the Smoking Guns, Clarence is on commentary, and he's just babbling throughout it, and he's looked up a few legal words in the dictionary, but he seems to have, even I, with zero legal training, know what the difference between slander and libel is, and he doesn't. Route one, if you're going to use these terms, at least use them correctly, because that's, when the stalker comes out, he comes out in camo. He has promos shot in swamps where he's hunting stuff. Get the I mean, if he came out in like a tutu, that wouldn't work. So why do they let Clarence Mason come out with the incorrect language costume and just hope that nobody notices? Well, I noticed.
There you go. Obviously they couldn't put one past you, Mike.
And Taz was at ringside.
I was going to say, so yeah, ECW showed up again. Obviously their security is quite lax these days.
Yeah. Well, I assume he bought a ticket.
The interesting thing here is Owen Hart and British Bulldog. We talked last week about the fact that they are being portrayed as slightly heely because of the whole Bret Hart thing. In the only match where we actually get to see not the only match where we get to see the guns, the last match where we get to see the guns, Billy yells at the crowd and shouts for them to shut up, which is a fairly standard heel tactic. They get booed when they win, and so I'm like, well, so this is what? Heel versus heel?
And booed not because the Body Donners are massively over.
No.
They're booed because they're being badly behaved, not because they've beaten the good guys.
No.
Nobody cares about the Body Donners.
Well, it's also the Rockers that are faced at one point and get booed after they win that one. It's very confusing. I think Hart was supposed to be... Sorry, not Hart. Billy was supposed to be yelling at the crowd because they were saying that he fancied Sonny, but that they weren't at the time, so... I don't know.
Because how would they know? Because they're not listening to the commentary that's telling you what's going on.
That's quite true, yeah.
If he'd cut a promo in the ring, that would make sense, but he didn't, so it doesn't.
Yeah.
Which is as much, yeah.
It's a running theme, I feel.
Yeah.
So one of the. Sorry, go on.
So yeah, I was just going to say, because none of these people are being allowed promos, I'm finding it hard to understand what the paying audience are getting out of this in terms of the story, because if they're going to play up this infatuation angle, and if, as you say, if they are going to try and build it into a love triangle, that's key information for the audience there to have, because that tells them who to root for, but it also informs how to react when certain things happen in the match, and they're just not getting any of that. It's not like, at the snooker in this country, you can get earpieces, so when you're watching in there, you can hear John Virgo and whoever's up in the commentary box, you can hear their commentary. But it's not like that for wrestling. And so the problem of pushing all of this story angle through on commentary is that you're just ignoring your live audience.
I seem to think that they're wrestling. Well, they are wrestling, but they're running under this assumption that people have come to the live show just to watch a wrestling match, and that people on television at home will get bored with that, so they've got to invent some story and do similar things to what WCW is doing to try and capture the television audience. So I think they're in a transition period here, and it's feeling really not working very well.
Yeah, I don't know. It's all over the place. So there's a match in the second episode of Raw, which is Vader and Jim Cornette versus HBK and Jose Lothario, which seems to come out of nowhere. I get that Vader and HBK are sort of feuding, and that Cornette and Lothario have had their garbage match at the previous pay-per-view. So what happens then is, at the end of the match, Vader is clobbering on HBK, which Sid then comes and breaks up with his sad pot noodle hair. And then
is that the one which ended up with basically HBK taking on Gold Dust at the same time, and just as it looked like everyone was going to throw down, they ended the show?
Yeah, and all of a sudden, then Sid has got a match the next week with Gold Dust for no reason at all.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
And then there's a whole bit about Cornette going on about how Vega has sorry, Vader has pinned HBK, and therefore he should be the number one contender. And I'm sitting there going, yes, you're right. You clearly do understand how this works. So why are you booking it completely different?
His promo was good, though.
It was. It was very good.
It was very Heyman and Brock in that Cornette did all the talking while Vader sort of flexed not his muscle, but he sort of twitched in the ring.
moved his mass around.
But classic promo from Cornette. He bigs up the power of his guy. He recaps the story up to that point. So saying, oh, Vader beat you twice at SummerSlam. He definitely deserves his rematch. He talks about the future, i.e. he talks about a match between Sid and Vader at the pay-per-view because they have to have this number one contenders match. So he's doing everything right. He's pushing the story. He's doing it in the ring. He's bigging up his guy, and he's selling the money match
Absolutely.
at the pay-per-view. Why is it so hot? Why is this basically the first promo in 2 months to have done that?
The other thing is he's doing all the right things and exposing the fact that WWE are doing the wrong things, because he says, like, why are we going to Buried Alive to have a number one contendership match when we already have a number one contender as decided by the result this month?
Well, that's sort of neither here nor there. He's sort of, I think that's him pushing his heelishness a bit. He's saying that it should be obvious that Vader is the number one contender, even though there hasn't been a number one contenders match.
So
I want you to know I did that in speechy marks.
Speechy marks, excellent. Okay, we could all see them.
So when Sid fights Goldust, there's another phone call. Somebody calls into the commentary desk, and it's Sean, and they're just talking about whether he wants to face Sid or Vader. And he's like, oh, nah, they're both rough. I don't really fancy it. And then he talks about his match with Stone Cold the next week.
He does his classic thing of saying that he doesn't know how he's going to deal with Stone Cold because he's thick and he doesn't have a brain. It's like, what are you doing?
Devalues the sort of position that he's in. Like, he's this airhead.
Yeah.
Like, he is literally this boy toy. But obviously, he's obviously this very technical athlete. He must have spent a lot of time working and thinking about it. It's not like he has an inherent talent for being able to do the things that he does. He has to work on his athleticism and he has to work on his moveset. So because he did this he said he had a repetitious thing. He said before his match with Mankind that all of the mind games that Mankind had played, which he hadn't, weren't going to work because Sean didn't have a mind. And he does sort of the same thing again. He says, oh, they can try and sort of psych me out, but I haven't got a psyche. I'm like, you have got a psyche.
Yes.
Demonstrably do have. And then again, so this match had that in it. It had this phone call from Sean. But then Jim Cornette comes out in the last 90 seconds, which completely telegraphed that there was going to be post-match scuffling. There was a dreadful... so he's fighting Goldust in this match, and there's a dreadful atomic drop that Sid does to Goldust. And other than Sid holding on to Goldust's waist, there's no contact between the two of them.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
And then when Vader inevitably comes out at the end of the match, and they're having some scuffles, Sid no-sells a Vader bomb.
Huge no-sell. Completely just straight back up again.
Yeah, and then massively oversells mental illness. He's like, his face goes humongous, and he's like, da, 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 da. He does the Hogan finger wave. Like,
Did you pick up on the whole theme of extremely polite run-ins that was going on this month, by the way? So Vader waits until Sid has won the match before running in, and then the two of them just basically don't have any contact and slide out. And then the next week, Vader actually does come down Sid actually does come down in time to be in the middle of the match and actually influence it. But instead of costing Vader the win, because that would, build the feud, it gives Finn the upper hand for 30 seconds, and then Vader wins anyway. So the whole Sid thing didn't matter. Like, it's not like Sid went back and was like, oh, my first distraction didn't work, I better make sure he loses. He just politely walks back.
Yeah. Oh, I've had enough of this.
Yeah.
I'm going off to have a Bovril or something, or some Ovaltine. In terms of, like, so there was... What's annoying is that Sid didn't get a promo, because I think he's good on the mic, and he does... It's strange, like we've said before, that he has these sort of heelish elements to his character, like that he's mental. He thinks he's the ruler of the universe. He does this sort of angry kind of whispering, which I really like. I think that's really good. But he's completely over. When he comes out for this match, he's doing like the one arm straight out for fist bump stuff and screaming at members of the audience and like trashing them. And it's crazy. But then the other thing that I really liked this month was the build. So Undertaker and Mankind have the headline match at the pay-per-view. They have the Buried Alive match.
Yeah.
And that whole build this month was done through promos. And what was great is that they were basically matching promos.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
It was noticeably shot on film rather than on tape, so it looked much nicer. It was shot in low light, so there was real atmosphere. It's not like at the time in horror and in all sorts of things, I never really realised how spoilt we were by having real darkness in films and things. But now I realise when you watch a modern horror film, there's nothing darker than sort of light blue. And you can see everything and there's no mystery to it. So to watch this, I mean, obviously to a degree, all of this makes me nostalgic. But just watching there's a low amount of light and the scene disappeared. That I couldn't tell you whether they did it on set or whether they did it on location. That's how good it was, because there was enough light that you could see what was going on. You could see either of them digging holes in the ground, or you could see a little bit into the distance, but then you couldn't see any further. So it was left to your imagination to see whether he was in like a huge cemetery or whether he was just on a set. And yeah, it's just back and forth through the month, digging holes, saying that they're gonna bury each other. Obviously,
Mankind sold the thing you mentioned last week about the whole magic trick thing by basically like Mankind's totally losing his mind trying to figure out how he got in the coffin. Exactly. It's just brilliant stuff.
Yeah, and they're quite short promos. I mean, noticeably, obviously Raw is an hour at this point, so promos, there's no sort of opening 20-minute promo. But I think, especially in this set, it works much better. It's succinct. There's a real efficiency of language. They're completely selling the money match, which is going to be at the pay-per-view. I could have done without being constantly reminded that this was an unsanctioned match. You have sanctioned it. It's at your pay-per-view. You keep telling us you're going to build an actual cemetery there. So you have, you can say that it's unsanctioned, but you've put quite a lot of administrative effort into it and a lot of money, preparation and commitment of your crew towards this match. You've sanctioned it.
They were using this again to build the whole JR versus Vince McMahon thing, because JR kept saying like, trust Vince McMahon to make an unsanctioned match. I'm like, can we keep this one feud? Can we keep that out of that feud?
It's becoming his. Over this month, I don't know if there's going to be a payoff to it either, but it is becoming his sort of. They obviously think that the Lawler Jake the Snake thing is a real winner. To abuse somebody who has overcome alcoholism, that's a worthy thing. So they obviously think that JR needs to feud with someone, and so they're just saying, feud with Vince, because like you can't feud with Kevin Kelly, because that's like feuding with dust, or like mist. He's just nothing. He's awful. He's got nothing to add at all. He doesn't know any moves. He doesn't know any jokes. Yeah, so they obviously just think that Kevin Kelly should be this kind of quiet voice of reason, and then these two. It's basically the wrestling version of those two old Muppets that complained about everything, Stadler and Waldorf.
Really
And why? I don't need any of this. The feud with McMahon is probably going to go nowhere. I couldn't understand why you brought in Razor and Diesel, whether that was to show you had power or to trash the company that pays you. And the only good thing about Lawler trashing on Roberts is that finally we did get a match between Jake the Snake Roberts and Jerry Lawler.
Mm-hmm.
So Lawler's out in the ring doing his stand-up comedian shtick about just drunk jokes and just replacing the normal person in the joke with Jake the Snake Roberts. And then Jake's music hits and Jake comes staggering out, sort of
with
swaying
a bottle.
With a brown paper bag with a bottle in it. And I don't know about you, but I immediately was like, there's no way that he's drunk, even within the story, because they wouldn't let him come out if he was actually pissed.
I know there was one time when Jeff Hardy came out clearly high as a kite.
Oh, that was in TNA.
That was in TNA,
and Sting has to force pin him.
Yeah. But that was less obvious than someone going out with a bottle in their hand in a brown paper bag.
But I thought that they kind of staged it really well. So Jake comes to the ring and he's clearly a bit pissed, and then the referee is a bit like, I'm not sure that I should let you in to the ring to do this because you don't seem on the level. And then while he's talking to the ref, Gorilla Monsoon comes out and they have a little sort of tete-a-tete in the corner where Jake so there's like four people head to head, and it's Jake and the referee and Gorilla and the cameraman. So not only do they stage it so that at least half of the audience can see that Jake is fine, but also so that we at home are fine. And
Jake portrays that so well. It's like old school pantomime. Really see what he's trying to show.
That's what was great. I'd say that was what was great about Jake, as if he's dead, but he's not. He was completely capable, and he does have this. I think I said when we were talking about Sid last time, he never really had to shout. I mean, it's all right if you're Hogan and you're shouting about the prayers, brother, and taking your vitamins and all of this stuff, and that's fine. And the Warrior, there's the same shouting about the little warriors, but there is something really heelish about quietly whispering and just being really certain and sure about what you're going to do. And he does it really well. Sid does it really well. It's the sort of thing that Bray Wyatt can't really do.
Yeah. It's the other thing is that Taker was doing it really well in these VTs because they had them sort of like almost dueling. They would sort of as if they've just missed each other. Taker was always sort of very quiet and menacing compared to Mankind's quite sort of, crazy and shrill. Yeah. It seems to be something that, the real big names had this skill.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder, given that the things that we've picked up as being good promos, not good promos, but good bits. So there's this bit of business with Jake, Lawler, and Monsoon, Undertaker and Mankind, and Jim Cornette with Vader. Mm-hmm. These people are all sort of industry stalwarts. So it kind of made me wonder how much control they've got over the booking as compared to where the Guns probably, they're not veterans, they're not sort of really knowledgeable industry people, so they're kind of having the story told for them because they're not capable of pushing their own story, if you sort of see what I mean.
Yeah.
So are Mark Calloway, Mick Foley, and I've forgotten Paul Bearer's real name, which is a shame because that would have made me look clever. Percy? I think his name's Percy.
I think it is, yeah.
So those three all really know their stuff when it comes to the industry. So I wonder if they're given more leeway and more creative freedom, because they'll do something equally good, if not better, than what Vince and Pat are writing for them.
Yeah.
Whereas the the less experienced people aren't putting that across because they don't have the confidence, or they're not going to be given the opportunity to do it.
I wonder if it's also the job security, like Mankind, Undertaker, etc. know that they're not going to get in trouble if they go off book, and so they can just, if they decide to do things in a slightly different way, do it. And they both have such faith in Paul Bearer, they know that he'll just jump in and play along wherever they go with things.
Yeah, I think by this point, the fact that Undertaker and the WWE have committed to this, what is going to be a long-running angle with Mankind, obviously that shows some faith in his ability to carry matches, carry promos, sell merchandise. So I'd imagine he does have a bit more job security at this point than maybe he did at WCW.
Yeah.
But that was most of this month, really. There was some good bits again, but overall it's just a mire of confusion.
I mean, there was. I would argue that Sid and Vader had some sort of build, or at least they didn't. Yeah. They didn't have anti-build, because for me the Triple H Stone Cold thing, it felt like they had anti-build, like they were building anything but the match that was happening at Buried Alive. It felt almost like they were hoping to get Bret Hart back. He wouldn't negotiate his contract, so they ended up having to go, quick, put Stone Cold against somebody else at Buried Alive.
I mean, Stone Cold has got two angles that got pushed more than this pay-per-view one.
Yeah.
So his ongoing feud with Bret and this match with HBK both got way more of a look in than this match that's going to be on the pay-per-view, which is really strange because on paper to us from this point of view, that looks like a match that you'd really want to see. I've got no doubt they're going to probably put in a pretty decent match.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's just going to be, like I say, I think it's going to be about pushing the Mr. Perfect angle for nothing.
But Mr. Perfect at this point isn't going to wrestle anymore, is he? I thought he had to retire or something.
Well, yeah, he dropped the belt to Bret because he'd had serious knee or back problems, and has been sort of behind the desk since then. But if they then, so this match is scheduled for the Monday after Buried Alive. So if they are not going to do it, that's even worse. They've built all of this sort of they've built all month towards this. Well, no, the past 2 months they've built towards Triple H fighting Mr. Perfect. If they do a swerve at the end where it's not Mr. Perfect and they bring out somebody else,
fake Diesel or somebody,
Mr. Almost Perfect. Yeah.
So just on that point, like, where does Triple H get us endless supply of girls from? B, where is Mr. Perfect taking them? Like, there's just like got a room somewhere with lots of women just sort of making small talk and a bit confused as to how they got here and what.
We'll have a conversation off mic. I think it's about time you understood some things about adult life, and you can sit on my knee and I'll explain all about the birds and the bees and how they're involved with Triple H and Mr. Perfect and their win.
Wait, Triple H and Mr. Perfect have got birds and the bees going on? That's a different...
Oh, I'm so surprised the WWE has never had a tag team called like Bird and Bee. Oh, dear Vince. Where's my keyboard? Dear Vince, I've got a great idea for a tag team.
Oh, come on, we've had Fandango and what's his name. They've been ridiculous enough.
Well, bring back Val Venus to be one of them, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, speaking of which, we got to, because we saw the Rockers, we got to see Al Snow again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Jobbing out with Marty Jannetty.
Yeah. Didn't take any chair shots this week, I don't think.
No, and just wasn't... I mean, by this point, Marty's looking a bit sort of... I mean, like, fake Razor's clearly got the mumps, but Marty's looking a bit... a bit.
Fake Razor really did not look healthy.
He does. He literally looks like he's retaining some sort of fluid everywhere.
Fake Diesel is looking like fluffy as fuck.
I love his sort of shaggy dog black hair.
It does look ridiculous.
Yeah, no wonder he had to have a rug when he becomes Kane, because like his hair, because that's his natural hair, obviously.
Yeah,
it just looks daft.
Oh, while we're on the subject, why the hell did Razel and Diesel run into the Vader HBK Sid thing right at the last Raw? It's like, and didn't Savio Vegas get involved in that as well?
I don't know. I thought maybe they were trying to play up the idea that obviously Shawn was friends with Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, but the whole point is that they're saying these are characters, not Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, so it doesn't actually make any... Again, it makes zero fucking sense.
It's going to be the new pay-per-view. WWF in your house, it makes no fucking sense.
Yeah. WWF WTF.
Nice. I like it. So, anything else that sort of stood out for you over the last 4 weeks of Raw?
I think the only other thing that I noticed was the Sheik had a match against someone, and during the commentary, the only thing I remember from that match was Bob Backlund saying, "I can't hear properly without my glasses on."
Yes. Oh, and being told that they had to wear sunglasses so they didn't stare into the soul of the audience or something like that.
Something like that.
Of course, yeah, that makes sense.
Mad. And also, at some point, JR said of Savio Vega, he's here to kick Fanny and take names.
Yes, I heard that. That was another...
Which struck me as really weird, because obviously I know what he means, because Fanny has a different meaning depending on which side of the Atlantic you live on.
Yeah.
But he's just the week before done an ass-laden promo where he said the word ass many times. So I don't know why he can't just say that he's here to kick ass and take names.
No.
Why is he suddenly... I mean, the whole point of that saying is that he's here to kick ass and take names. It's an authoritative statement. When you dumb it down, well, not dumb it down, when you sanitize it a bit and say Fanny instead of ass, it kind of loses, oh, he's here to kick Fanny. And you just think
presumably Fanny is some old lady who works...
90-year-old woman.
Yeah, that's it. JR has another great one as well in the Keep It Classy WWE segment, which is, he says, Sonny makes Pamela Anderson look like a Harvard graduate, and then goes on to complain that she shouldn't be there because she's nothing to do with athletics.
Can you tell who's a Harvard graduate by looking at them?
I presume he's insulting the intelligence of both Sonny and Pamela Anderson?
I know. I assume that he's just being horribly sort of sexist.
Really? In this era? Surely not.
I know.
I think it's wonderfully ironic, him complaining on a wrestling show that Sonny shouldn't be out there because she's nothing to do with athletics.
Well, yeah, I mean, they are...
You could argue that sports entertainment is quite an athletic discipline, but still...
It is, that is the correct way. It's athletic, but they're not athletes, because part of the definition for an athlete is someone that takes part in a contest where the outcome is not preordained.
Yeah.
So they are athletic, but they are not athletes.
They are athletic actors.
Yeah.
But yeah, even still, I was just like, JR, what is that? I guess I just can't get on with heel JR, because to me he's always been good old JR, the good guy. So yeah, you mentioned it before. Good to see Jake Roberts finally kicking King's ass. Hopefully they'll drop this whole bit now.
Yeah, I really hope so.
It was particularly painful because obviously they were getting to a payoff this week, so it was particularly painful.
I just hope they're done.
Yeah, and yeah, as we mentioned before, how ridiculous is it having the title defense at a pay-per-view and not showing it?
You might as well just not have it.
Yeah,
just put on another match. Anything.
So that's been the weeks that were.
Yeah.
Are we looking forward to Buried Alive?
Yeah, kind of. I think the I want to see Sid versus Vader because I think that'd be a nice, big, high impact, um, tough guy match. I think Stone Cold and Triple H will put on a decent opener.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to seeing how Triple H is going to transition over the next few weeks and months from his posh boy act to his, head of D-Generation X.
That's going to take, I think that's going to take a bit longer. That might take about a year or so.
Yeah.
But yes, it's how is he slowly going to morph from this sort of accented blue blood into the more sort of wildly out of control anti-authority figure. And obviously, I'm looking forward to seeing the Buried Alive match because I'm kind of ghoulish and I'm looking forward to someone being genuinely buried alive
in a completely unsanctioned way.
Absolutely.
I'm fascinated by the description that they're actually going to build a cemetery in the. I just thought they were going to do the whole, glorified casket match or something like that.
I feel that they are overselling it. My feeling is it will be just a mound.
Right, fair enough.
They're not going to dig up. They're not going to go down to the nearest hospital and get a few cadavers and actually bury them in the sod. I think it will just be a mound and a pile of dirt, and that headstone that they've had on the walkway every week that people have had to walk around.
It looked like they were going to fall over it every time, yeah.
But that at least was selling the pay-per-view. It was a nice way of reminding you that this pay-per-view with this Buried Alive match was coming, but then you never heard the end of it really.
No.
On the commentary either. So.
No, but at least in this pay-per-view, people might actually be buried alive.
Yes, well, the match has to end that way, so it's unlike Mind Games where there's not a commitment to having some Mind Games. Somebody will be buried alive.
I'm just trying to imagine a match now where you can only win by playing Mind Games on your opponent.
Yeah.
No. Yes. So, next week, or not next week, next 2 weeks, I should say, we'll be back with the actual Buried Alive pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And we'll see where all these storylines culminate, or if they culminate at all, in fact. And,
nope.
We'll watch where people like Road Dogg, Jesse James are going to go, and hope that JR can pick on... Jerry Lawler can pick on someone else for a change.
Yeah. Just settle down, mate.
Yeah, calm.
Wind your neck in.
All right, and on that bombshell, I think it's goodbye from me.
Yep.
Goodbye.
And goodbye from me as well.
Good.